Hi everyone, it's Channel Chris. You can call me Chris. Today I just want to tell you my Jordan story. Everyone's got one. We all sort of have our story of our relationship to Michael Jordan. And mine starts when I was in high school in 1984. I was a sophomore. I watched the Olympics. Right when they were finished, I moved to this next town and started a new school. So by the time the basketball season rolls around, the football players that were playing basketball got to the practices late. The basketball players were already practicing. So when I went to get my jersey, there was one other player there in front of me, and he happened to be the best player. I didn't know it at the time. And he picked up jersey number 23, and he was like, yes, 23! And I was like, what's the big deal with number 23? He looked at me and he was like, Michael Jordan. Now mind you, I grew up outside of Chicago. This is at St. Charles High School. I'd moved from Geneva to St. Charles. They're right next to each other. So then I was like, oh, okay, I knew who Michael Jordan was because I'd watched the Olympics. But I never followed college basketball, so I didn't know anything about the North Carolina days. I grew up without a father, so I grew up playing sports, but I didn't watch sports. So I mean, I watched maybe the Harlem Globetrotters. That was my introduction to basketball, but I never followed the Bulls. I never followed any college teams. And the Bulls were pretty crappy. I knew that the Bulls were bad. That's about my extent of my Bulls knowledge. So I didn't even know that Michael Jordan was drafted by the Bulls. It was just off my radar. I had moved schools, and with football season on, I just didn't have a clue. But I remembered, when he said Michael Jordan, I remembered Michael Jordan from the Olympics because he was a guy who I saw him play basketball and I'd never seen anything like it. I just remember watching those games and him having a big impact on me, although I didn't know who he was. And so then I was like, oh great, the Bulls have Michael Jordan, this great athlete, that's awesome. I started watching the basketball games in my bedroom on this small little crappy black and white television. It was painful when I look back on it. You had a lot of these wide shots, and on this little crappy black and white screen, you could hardly see what the heck was going on, but I always knew Michael Jordan because of the shoes. You'd see some little difference in the shoes, and so I was able to track him on there and watch all his moves. And it was funny because I'd watch like all the games, and I had this little Nerf hoop. During the commercial breaks, I would be up there trying to do the dunks, the windmills and all that stuff. My basketball game was highly crafted and influenced by the game of Michael Jordan. And our basketball coaches in like sophomore year and in varsity coaches, they were all like Hoosiers playing some old. They wouldn't even let us shoot a layup one-handed, which was pathetic. So needless to say, there were a number of us that just didn't vibe with them, and we ended up not playing basketball in varsity. Fast forward to 1985. This was still my sophomore year. Basketball season's over. Everyone has seen Michael Jordan wearing these Air Jordan shoes in the games, and just the talk of all over town was, when are these shoes going to be available to the public? And Nike started their ad campaign, and we all were waiting for these shoes, just waiting and waiting for these shoes. And I just remember St. Charles High School, Monday morning, everyone's milling about the lockers, hanging out with their groups of friends and doing whatever. And in walks this kid with Air Jordans, the Chicagos. And I mean, it was just like this noise just going flying through. And by the time it got to our end, we knew the shoes were coming. And so we see him come walking up, and he's wearing the Air Jordans. And I just remember going like, oh, they didn't look as good as I had anticipated, as I expected them to look. They didn't look like Michael Jordan's shoes, sadly, but they were still hot. Everyone wanted them, and I wanted a pair, but $65 was the price tag, if I remember correctly, and it was way out of my price range. I mean, I only bought shoes that were on sale that were like 19 bucks. That was the cutoff. If it was 19.95, I would get them. So I did not get the Jordans. And if you follow me on Instagram, then you know that my sophomore year, I just had a crappy pair of the basic leather Nike leather basketball shoes. They weren't even good quality leather. And I wanted those Jordans so badly. And I didn't get my Air Jordans until a little bit later. My junior year in high school, I wasn't playing basketball, and there was an auto show in Chicago, and Michael Jordan had broken his foot. And so he was signing autographs at the auto show. And my grandmother goes, do you want to go to the auto show? And I was like, oh great, I'm going to go to the auto show with my grandmother. And then I found out that Michael Jordan was going to be there, and I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I got to wait in line for a long time, but I got to meet Michael Jordan. He signed an autograph for me. It was just him with the Chevy Blazer. And my nickname at the time was Arnie. So I wanted him to write it to Arnie. So now I've got this autograph that says, you know, to Arnie, Michael Jordan. It's so funny to me now. That nickname didn't stick very long. It was my junior year, my senior year, I found a pair of the AJKOs, the Chicago colorway. And they were on sale. They were 19 bucks. There was one pair left in my size 12. And I just couldn't believe it. And although they were canvas, they weren't. I kind of liked them though. I sort of felt like they were probably more comfortable than the actual Jordans, because that leather didn't look as good to me. So I was okay with owning the AJKOs, like the canvas ones. And I just remember flipping up that shoe and looking at the underside, the bottom of that sole, and seeing the rings and stuff. And I wanted a pair of Nike Airs that had those type of soles, which were probably the Airship my sophomore year, which was '84 when they came out. The only year they had them, I think. And everyone on my team had them, but I didn't have them. So I always wanted those soles. I liked them. I thought they were better, probably athletically, the grip on the court. So I remember looking at the bottom of that shoe, that red sole with those rings, and going like, I got Jordans. So cool.